Hey everyone, what is going on? What is going on? Welcome to That Man Show. My name is Curtis Brooks. I am your host and executive coach. I help high achieving men master the art of integrated leadership and authentic masculine presence. Guys, we got a powerful show for you. We're talking about hell hath no fury like a leader scorned, navigating betrayal and ego, the path to becoming resilient leadership. So we've got again, a great conversation for you. Before we get started, let me make sure that we are connected on different channels here. Hey, Wayne, thank you, brother, for supporting me over there on LinkedIn. Appreciate you, man. Absolutely, man. Appreciate you. Thank you, man. So give me 1 second here. Also, gonna make sure that we are connected to. Connected to Substack over here. All right, there we go. We're officially connected to Substack. All right, guys. So again, thanks for watching. Before we get started, we've got some information I want to share with you. You can contact us over on several platforms. Actually, reach out to us. We are on. Let's see here. We're on LinkedIn, of course. This is our main platform, which we'll stream from and share this broadcast out. Also over on Substack, you see there on the screen at Brooks Curtis, and of course, YouTube at Men's Life Coaching on YouTube. And lastly, for the men, we are trying to get you together. That's our goal here, to unite men. So we got a powerful challenge that's taking place called United Impact Challenge. Check out the information there on the screen at bit.ly/United Impact Challenge. You will not be disappointed, man. You will not be disappointed. So it is absolutely needed, I believe, for the community of men, regardless of your background. It's absolutely needed, guys. So we need to come together. So again, check out that challenge there, bit.ly/United Impact Challenge there on my screen. And there you go. So with that being said, again, guys, we got a powerful conversation for you. We're talking about hell has no fury like a leader scorned. And putting this together, I was obviously thinking about the play created by William Congreve in 1697. Obviously I wasn't born at the time, but I did some research in putting this together here. So that being said, the title of his original play was The Mourning Bride. And I thought to myself, that would be interesting if I could put something together that would mirror that, just the idea. Because in his play, he describes the response of a scorned woman who is left at the altar, the betrayal, the what is it? The betrayal, and just a host of things that we deal with as leaders. And so through the eyes of this leadership, or the lens of this leadership, I wanted to come up with a topic that was fitting. So here we are. Hell hath no fury like a leader scorned. And before we get started, I want to say this here. Leadership's not easy. It's not easy. And I think we have to first determine there is a leadership model that I believe that comes from the inside, that we're all, that's innate. It's innate. It's in part of us. And it doesn't mean that we're going to come out the womb and knowing exactly what to do, but it needs to be, mature. It needs to be grown up. It needs to be purposed. And so obviously out the womb, there are a lot of things that we don't know, and that's apparent. But the leadership model that we're often find ourselves making up, that's been created, that's surrounding us, so to speak, the armor, I like to say, that we've placed on, that we put on, that's been established for us. This is the leadership styles or modules or methods or a concept of leadership that is often offended. This is the kind of leadership style or the method of leadership that is that feels betrayed oftentimes. And it's interesting because I looked at the word betray, and one of the things, one of the words, the definitions for the word betray, it says to seduce and desert. So that means that the word betray means that someone is going to, or someone or entity or an organization has drawn us in on the guise of one particular idea or concept or method or just ideology, and yet they pull the old switcheroo on us and it leaves us out there hanging. And yet another definition, and that's the word definition for the word betray. And obviously there's a lot more definitions, but I want to read you this last one for the word betrayal. And it says an act of instant or unconsciously revealing or displaying some quality or characteristic, typically one preferably conceals. And so we've got the betray from a perspective that one has been seduced, one has been drawn into something, an idea or a concept. And for the word betray, for the word betrayal, we've got someone who is perhaps has yet a not so different agenda, but an agenda where that he or she, that particular leader, is speaking in secret, perhaps, and yet he is betrayed, and once he's betrayed, it uncovers him. It uncovers that leader, and so he feels that the very thing that he has been trying to protect in some instances, his reputation. And so this is where I'm going with this. Leadership is not easy. It's not easy. Hey, Natalie, thank you for joining over there on LinkedIn. I believe it's one of the harder assignments because many of us aren't taught to lead. We are oftentimes told what a leader is and what a leader does. Like us as men, sometimes we are told that we are providers. We're told that we are protectors. And yet the idea of that is still somewhat vague. For some men, it's still vague. And some women, it's still vague. So the idea that a leader is betrayed, it's crushing. And it doesn't mean that he or she, the leader, is doing anything wrong, but the idea that he is betrayed. And I like to often think that even with leadership, hey, Coach Carey, thank you for joining. As mentioned, Natalie, thank you for joining as well. I like to believe that the leader has, in a sense, been carrying those things. If he's offended, if he was offended in leadership, he was most often offended coming from his home, that just the fundamentals of life, and just growing up in a household where, again, a lot of times we can't seem to put things together. I think that oftentimes that this is where it all begins, where we are offended as young people, the dynamics of our own households. So now this leader, this young man, is an adult and he's offended. He's challenged. He is the scorned leader. And he begins to lead out of that space. He begins to be challenged from what he feels on every hand. His authority has been challenged. His His direction has been challenged. Thanks for joining us over on Substack, Carrie. Appreciate you. His his overall voice has been challenged, and oftentimes, even as parents, well before we are trying to even make a move and trying to lead a organization, even as parents, in the confines of our own home, as leaders, we are we can be crushed by the disrespect. We can be crushed by the betrayal. The betrayal doesn't necessarily only come from our spouse, or cannot only come from our spouse, but the betrayal comes from our kids. It comes from those who we are leading. Now let's amplify this in the workplace, because for me, in a mindset where you're taking care of your home, I think the betrayal from home is worse. It's just such a thing. What are your thoughts on that? Which is worse, the betrayal from home or the betrayal from your workplace? Could they be equal in just maybe how we feel about it, how we're dealing about it? Could they be equal? What are your thoughts on that? But for me, it's the betrayal of the home. And well, you know what? I take that back. I'm not really sure on that one, because I did have an incident where it was betrayal in the workplace. And it was crushing. And so what happens is that we as leaders lead from that space. We end up leading from that scorned, torn space. And as a consequence, we are now withdrawn to a degree. We're retaliating towards other employees, or either leadership, maybe even an organization. We're not trustworthy anymore, because let's face it, when a leader has been betrayed, it absolutely can destroy your trust. So this conversation is not to place leaders in a space where we should not be offended. We should not be hurt. We should not feel betrayed, because the reality of it is that we're human, and we do feel betrayed at times. We do feel hurt at times, and we naturally. At times, we can deal with that betrayal. We can deal with that hurt. Again, dealing with the mistrust, wondering where can we go with the things that we're dealing with. The safe space for us as leaders has been disrupted. And so what happens is that we as leaders, we end up doing our share and retaliating. We end up doing our share and creating a unhealthy workspace. And I often call this the unintegrated leader, the scorned leader. And it is obvious that his ego is wounded. And when we look at, or at least when I look at the word ego, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Ego at times does get in the way. And ego obviously can be offended. But sometimes people just don't know. Sometimes people have grown up in a particular way of doing things in their own household. And ideally, ladies and gentlemen, this leadership that we have taken on, one second here. This leadership that we have taken on, before we've learned anything about leadership, we lead from the very knowledge that we have. So I believe leadership is a skill. I believe leadership is a major responsibility when it's done right. I believe that leaders have a moral obligation and a spiritual obligation, whether you believe in that or not, that's neither here or there. But there is a moral obligation to society. And I think all too often, we as leaders, we have taken on the task or the assignment, and the assignments has been given to us in life via an organization, even in our own households. We haven't always known what that looks like. Because I believe that most of us in society, most of us in the world have garnered our view of leadership from a societal perspective, the different constructs that have been created, whether we agree with them or not. This is ends up being in most ways a group thinking. And it is truly unfortunate because what happens is that is the ego gets offended. The ego gets offended. And when the ego is offended, he, or the leader should say, they will go into a cover-up mode, go into a mode that's feels like they've been betrayed, feels like their deepest secret has been revealed to others. And now their best job or their best effort is now to cover themselves up. This is the unintegrated leader. This is, in most cases, the reactive leader. He is, or she, I said leadership, but the reactive leader is taking these things to heart. And as a father, as a leader in my household, I too have been wounded at times. And I too have also tried to lead from a scorned place. And this is just putting the cards on the table. And I think every man has dealt with this. So there's not it's a opportunity to be vulnerable. Absolutely. And in leading from that space of that scorned leader, whether it was my ego that was attacked or I felt offended just by the situation in my household at the time, it was crushing. Absolutely was crushing. And so naturally, I think as people, our response was to deal with that matter, deal with that person, get them back for what they did to us. They hurt me, so now I'm going to hurt them. Now, this is the unintegrated leader. This is the leader who is reactive. So, as I've shared these different things with you, by no means have I've mastered it all. I've come to look at things from a different perspective. Last week I talked about, or I think the week before, I may have talked about that pause. That pause is a life changer, gentlemen. You need to try it. It's a life changer. So it has helped me tremendously in learning how to move from the reactive leader to the leader that pauses, to the leader who actually takes a moment to think about what's taking place. The leader who is engaged in active listening because of the pause. This pause is absolutely awesome, ladies and gentlemen. So that will not be the end of that conversation really, regarding the pause. It's an absolutely awesome thing to have in your toolbox when you're dealing with things that go against our own understanding sometimes. How we sometimes as leaders, especially as men, we see things a particular way. And when they don't show up or they're not presented in a way that we have them aligned them in here in our own mind, the first position we take a lot of times is the reactive leader. Sometimes these ideas and or concepts that we might have in our are in our own head. We may not have shared them with our spouse or even our team. So I'm combining the two here now, the leader at home and the leader in the workspace. The only difference is obviously there might be some things that you can't say or probably shouldn't say in the workspace when you're dealing with family members. That is the bigger difference. And what happens is that when we're caught up in a space and trying to separate leadership in such a way where we're saying or we're looking at leadership from a perspective that, hey, this is the leadership at home and this is the leadership that I practice in the workspace, we're mistaken. We're absolutely mistaken. Coming into this space of dealing with this scorned leader is not easy, because the leader has to make a decision in regards to how he is going to handle that particular situation, the betrayal, the disrespect. It's a huge one as far as leaders, especially with men, a huge one. And so we have to pause for a moment and look at how we are going to handle that. And all too often, and as we are dealing with leaders, are coming from a space of being leaders ourselves. Now, one of the things about leadership is that it's like an onion. Its layers being peeled back or peeled away. And what we may be dealing with on one day appears to be smooth sailing, and the next day we're dealing with something completely just out the park, something just, wondering where it showed up. And this is the stuff that we as leaders have to deal with. But until we deal with it, all of the things, they're too numerous to name, ladies and gentlemen, all of the things that we deal with as leaders in regards to, again, the betrayal, the people being dishonest, they're just a fact of life, guys. This is what we have to register. We have to register this as a fact of life. But we also have to be prepared to go from the. We also have to be prepared to go from the unintegrated leader to the leader who is making the decision to integrate all of this stuff. Because rest assured, the people around us, though their actions may be offensive, though their actions may absolutely challenge us in every part of our human being, every part of our being, their words, their attitude towards us, and just the disrespect that shows up at times. It can be a challenge going from that space, going from the unintegrated leader, the reactive leader, going into a place I like to call is the integrated leader, the leader who pauses, the leader who's less reactive. Again, peeling back those layers of that onion. And as we begin to peel back the layers of that onion, we're going to see more and more of ourselves show up. And even as of lately, I've been doing a lot more studying by the psychologist Carl Jung, and very interesting because he talks about the shadow work. And I think a lot of times we're saying the same thing, different ways. We may use different terminology, but we're saying the same thing. I might say the inner work, and he talks about the shadow work, and yet someone else says something completely different. But either way, unless there is an integration of the two, they remain as strangers. The unintegrated person part of us remains as the mystical person, the person that we don't know, the person in some instances we don't care to know. But yet, over here, there's this person who appears to be the good son, one who does everything right, or at least tries to do everything right. And every so now, the shadow of said leader shows up and just causes a bunch of chaos. And we're wondering where it comes from. We're wondering, how did we get from here to here? It's the shadow work that needs to be done. It's the work that affects every last one of us. And I think to a large degree, we haven't spent time with the shadow. We haven't spent time doing the inner work. And because we haven't spent time doing the inner work, we show up wearing a suit. We show up wearing a mask of a person who has not dealt with their pain, a person who has not dealt with their disappointment, a leader who's scorned. And it eventually filters into the workspace. It eventually filters into all areas of our lives as we're dealing with our spouse or our significant other, as we're dealing with our kids, as we're dealing with the neighbors. It shows up. So I believe that no man has a secret that will not eventually be revealed. It's only a matter of time. And I said in a previous video or a conversation I did, I think it was last week, that what you don't own will own you. What you don't own will own you. And this is a true fact. The very things that we don't understand about ourselves, they have a tendency to keep showing up. You ever ask a child, why did you do such and such? X, Y, Z. Why did you take the cookies? What's his typical response? Or what's the child's typical response? Is that, I don't know. And to a large degree, that's what we're dealing with as even adults, even as leaders. Not having significant enough of a response to understand ourselves. Why did you do X, Y, Z? I mean, you can ask grown people these questions, basic questions, and they don't know. And so the consequence or the resulting situation is that we end up leading our lives from that. A reactive response to life in general, not have any answers when we should have a response for such things. Why did you tell your team to do X, Y, Z? What was your thinking behind that? Can you share the logic with that? And for the leader who's unable to explain that, he could find himself in a space where he's getting worked up, getting irritated at the organization, getting irritated at his wife, his significant other, getting irritated at his children, and responding in such a way that's not very becoming of a leader. And as I said earlier, ladies and gentlemen, leadership is a responsibility. And I don't believe that enough of us are taking leadership as a responsibility. I think it's something that we put on, something that we like to wear, the title. I believe that once that period has ended from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., whatever your work schedule may be, we're ready to take it off. And what I've discovered is that when you're a leader, it's not something that you take off. Because the things that show up in life, such as our past, the traumas and things of that nature, they show up sometimes in a vengeful way. They show up wanting to take revenge, it feels like sometimes. They can show up, the trauma, our past, it can show up like we've betrayed them now. And so as a leader, we have to be ready at all times to deal with that trauma as it might show up. The trauma, the pain, the issues that the scorned leader may be dealing with, they don't just go away. They have to be worked on. They have to be dug up. We have to be prepared to look deeper. We have to be prepared to find the right words for our behavior in our actions. Because when we can find the right wording, find how we feel or have felt during a period of a time, we can connect with the part of us as leaders that's been scorned. But all too often, I believe we place leadership on like a suit. And once we're done with the day's activities, we are taking the suit off, leaving it at the workplace, and not knowing how to show up at home. So the stuff that we dealt with as a leader in the workplace, it has free reign when we get home. And here's what I mean by that. We as leaders oftentimes can feel like we're taking all these different darts that are thrown at us as leaders. And if you are a leader, that's just part of life. That's just what it is. Whether you're a husband, whether you are a father, whether you're a leader in the workplace, that's just what you have to deal with. So when we've dealt with those things and repelled certain things, different arrows that were shot at us that we may have dealt with at work, and can feel like as we're in a workplace that we're unscathed or it didn't bother us. So now when we get home, this is what usually happens. All of the guards that we may have put up for working out of that space as a leader on our assignment at the workplace from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., dealing with all the darts that have been sent our way. So what happens when we get into our respective homes, the guard drops. We drop our guard. And so now we're dealing with all the pressures that were not dealt with in the workplace, delayed as it may be, we're now ending up taking those things home and dealing with our wives or our spouses, our children, our family, out of those darts that we were not able to, that we managed so wonderfully in the workplace. But then once we got home, it was like the railing had, or the guards had been dropped, and we gave those issues free reign. And so that's why a leader needs to be on assignment all the time. Wayne says here over on LinkedIn, on point in this conversation, Curtis, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, absolutely. And this is that's an excellent point, Wayne. This is the thing about leadership, and regardless of what area of leadership. But this is the thing: when a person knows thyself, when a person, as Wayne said here so nicely, when a person knows his own darkness, your darkness, my darkness, we're not so different, ladies and gentlemen. That's the problem here, I believe. And I believe that so earnestly. That's the problem here. We see things are so different, in a sense, from one person to the next person. We may express ourselves differently. That's one thing. But the inner workings, the mindset, the darkness, the things that we may be dealing with, yes, they're different. But from one man to another man, if you know thyself, if a man knows himself, if a woman knows herself, from one man to another man, the mystery, the puzzle, the riddle solves itself. Understand this. Great comment, Wayne, over there. Great comment, brother. Thank you. Great comment. So, as we're dealing with this unintegrated, reactive leader, once he is ready to say, I have had enough of myself, and I believe that that's the wake-up moment. He or the leader may not say those exact words, but each person, leader, comes to a place where you've got to question the ridicule. You've got to question the darts that are coming. You just have to. You have to look at your own expectations. You have to talk to your team. You have to talk to your wife. You have to talk to your kids and find out what's needed. Because ultimately, the leader has to become it. The leader has to be ready to help our spouses, help our children, help the organization, help our team members find themselves as we have found ourselves. And there are not enough people, I don't believe, that carry that burden. There are not enough people who carry that burden to understand this is not about a race thing. It's understanding from one man to another man, one woman to another woman. We're not so different, ladies and gentlemen. We may have had different experiences. We may even describe something different from another person. But as we dig into the wording and how we have described certain things, we pause for a moment and say, wait a minute, we're talking about the same thing. And so because we think we're so different, we end up disrespecting each other. We end up betraying each other. And the reality is that oftentimes our very thoughts and feelings, well before an individual has betrayed us, our thoughts and feelings have betrayed us. They have done like I have shared with you the definition of the word betray. They have seduced us. They have drawn us into this space where we see ourselves as being separate. We see ourselves being different. We see ourselves at a certain position in life. We see ourselves doing better. Overall, just looking or thinking that we are just a better person, a better human being. So what happens when our thoughts and feelings seduce us, draw us into a space, and then desert us? What happens? So as a leader, we have to be prepared to look at life from a lens where we're not full of ourselves. We have to be prepared to look at life from a lens and say, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's not my spouse. Maybe it's not the kids. Maybe it's not the team members. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's you. Hey, Marcia over on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining. So as leaders, we have to be prepared to look at ourselves from that perspective. Because if not, we have a tendency to say it's everyone else's fault but ours. Meanwhile, everything that we touch turns to nothing. There's no real progress. No one wants to be around us. But from an integrated space, the leader deals with a framework that I've put together here. This is from an integrated space. The leader deals with a framework. We're talking about the path, a path to integration. From an integrated space, the leader deals with a framework that I like to call a 5-step framework that I actually work with work with my clients on as an executive coach. The first one is authentic self-awareness. This leader has, again, the leader who is deciding to take the path from unintegrated leader, the scorned leader, the reactive leader. he is he comes to a place where he's tired of himself, and let's just face it. Have you ever gotten on your own nerve? I it happens to me sometimes. It's like, Curtis, sit down. You need to sit down, man. It happens, but nevertheless, the leader who is going from the integrated leader, he has made a decision, because the bulk of what we will do in life, need to do in life, is to make a decision, right? So he is tired of himself. He is looking at the patterns. Patterns are huge, guys. So oftentimes we hear what people say, but look at the patterns. Look at the patterns. There's even a scripture in the Bible that says, you will know them by the fruit. You'll know the tree by the fruit that it bears. Look at the patterns. Okay. So that first pillar is going to be authentic self-awareness. And in this space, the integrated leader separates their identity from their role. A challenge to authority is not a challenge to their own worth or to their own identity. They can ask, what is the situation revealing about me, and what does it require of me? Now, this is absolutely powerful because as a leader, I'm doing the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing the same thing. This is part of that active listening that you may have heard mentioned many times. And I, just off my head right here, sometimes people are interesting, because I think we hear words enough, and we can find ourselves getting tired of hearing certain words, like being authenticity, and we can tire ourselves of hearing those different words, and it is truly unfortunate, because I think the people who get tired of hearing those words are the people who are struggling with it, are the people who are not asking enough questions, the people who are thinking that it's just something that's trendy, but in reality is that you don't come from this space unless you're doing the work. Just keep it in mind. It's not easy. Again, as I mentioned, the first pillar is the authentic self-awareness. That's a huge piece. In this space, we're challenging our own selves. Is it me? As I kind of mentioned earlier, is it me? Did I hear it correctly? Am I tripping over my stuff? Is it my stuff that's shown up? So we have to be prepared to look at it from that angle. Again, questioning first ourselves, questioning our own motive, making sure that our own motivations are not intertwined, especially when our motivations are coming from that scorned place. So being intentional about being self-aware, coming from that perspective, is absolutely huge, very important. The next pillar is emotional mastery and intelligence. So emotional intelligence. And so in this space, rather than being hijacked by anger or humiliation, the integrated leader observes their emotional state without being consumed by it. They choose a response aligned with their values, not a reaction driven by wounded pride. Now, this is absolutely powerful. Someone interviewed me yesterday, or maybe a couple of days ago, I think now, and this is interesting because he asked me almost a similar question, and my response was that a person's belief system, a person's values are absolutely important in this space, because without a belief system or values that are grounded, society and its pulling, the ideas and concepts that have been put out there the ideas, things that are trending out there, without a value system that's grounded, that you're grounded in, excuse me, you're subject to be drawn into a space where you are doing the very things that you said you would not do. So, in this space of emotional mastery, having a value system that is aligned with your belief system is absolutely imperative. Absolutely imperative. There is no 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ways around that one. It is absolutely imperative to have a belief system that aligns, that you align your values with, because if not, I think there's a saying that says, if you a man that believes nothing will fall for anything, or woman who believes nothing will fall for anything. And that basically says is that if you are not connected to a belief system that you're grounded in, values that you're grounded in, you're absolutely going to be find yourself lying subject to the things, just subject to the wind. The wind blows, and oh, I believe this. Oh, the wind blows to this direction. Oh, I believe this. The wind blows from yet another direction. Oh, I believe this. Again, not stable. Not stable. Some things in life have to be. Some things in life we just have to allow to take root. And without a root system that's secure, individuals secure in their belief system and values, it's absolutely very difficult to come to a place of emotional mastery and intelligence. Absolutely very, very difficult, nearly impossible, because your belief system, the emotional mastery and intelligence part of you, that discipline, it's anchored to a belief system. It's anchored to an understanding. It's anchored to a truth. And so without a value system that speaks and align with the emotional mastery and intelligence, it can become very, very difficult to be able to take a position on anything and stand on it. Very, very difficult. Thirdly, we've got embodied masculine presence, and this is the integrated leader, right? This is a leader who remains grounded and centered, even under pressure. Even under pressure. The physical and psychological stillness communicates authority, far more powerful than any display of fury. Their presence inspires calm rather than fear. Now, for us men, this is absolutely powerful, because this embodied masculine presence, where do you think that comes from? That comes from when you have got certain things figured out here. When you're no longer toiling with those things, when you're no longer toiling with the things that are in here, the pain of yesterday, the trauma, the triggers, the things that are triggering us. Because when you have settled the score on certain things in our lives, dealing with our shadow, doing the inner work, when you have settled the score, it's no longer about who you are as a man. It's the masculine presence that shows up. And the interesting thing about this masculine presence, it's not showing up from a space of, as I just read to you, a space of fury. It's showing up from a space of understanding. It's showing up from a space of a man who does the work, who has done the work, who's in the process of doing the work. Now, the process can absolutely be daunting. It can be overwhelming. But if you're trying to lead from a space of integration and not lead from a space of the scorned leader? Because ideally, that's where most of us are coming from. Ideally, that is where most of us are coming from. So if you're trying to lead from a space of the integrated leader, you've got to settle the score in here and in here. You've got to settle the score with your shadow. You got to be prepared to do the inner work. When I say inner work, I'm kind of using those two things synonymously, in a sense where shadow, inner work, that's kind of where I'm going with that. So you have to be prepared to meet your shadow. That part of us that some cases that we don't like. And we have to be prepared to dismantle the understanding. Because ideally that shadow, it comes from somewhere. It didn't just show up. Sometimes our parents spoke to us from the way, from a position or a place from which they didn't understand. And in doing so, what happens is that we obviously take on that misunderstanding. So the way our parents give it is the way we receive it. It's misconstrued. We can find ourselves battling with those things throughout a good part of our lives. And only to find out that it's now the work that we have to do. Have you ever, this is really quick here, I'll get back to this conversation here. Have you guys ever heard the story about the lady in the, I think the ham bone, or with the pot with the ham bone, and I don't think there's different variations of this story, but nevertheless, I think it goes something like the father, husband and wife. The husband said, "Honey, why do you cut the half of the ham and throw it in the garbage?" And so she says, "I don't know. This is the way Mom did it." And so she decided to take it upon herself. And I know the story probably has been told in different ways, but she decided to take it upon herself and find out why. So she calls her mother and say, "Mom, why did you cut half of the ham and toss it in the garbage?" And she calls her mom, and at some point, I guess, and only to find out the logical answer was that the pot was too, they didn't have a larger pot. Not only, obviously, the pot was too small, but they didn't have a larger pot. That was the logical answer. And so often, many times, this is the very thing that we do. The answer is logical. With some digging, with some questions, just being curious. Fourthly, the integrated leader is the fourth pillar is the integrated identity architecture. The integrated leader has a strong inner compass that is not dependent on external validation. They are not destabilized by criticism or betrayal because of their sense of self, because their sense of self is not contingent on the approval of others. Now, this is a huge one. Whether you are a man or a woman, this is a huge one. Again, I talked about the values, the belief system. These are absolutely imperative. And guess what? When your belief system is anchored, you're anchored in your values and understandings of what you're called to do, your purpose, having greater clarity, you are now dealing with the identity, the integrated identity architecture. Now, because the way society has created things and put things together, different social constructs, we can find ourselves looking at things from a group perspective, a group agenda. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Let's do it. Let's do it. But what happens for the person who says, wait a minute, did you think about this question? Did you think about looking at it from this angle or this perspective? That particular person is ideally going to be ostracized, can feel ostracized because he or she is thinking different, has yet a different angle. And as a leader, coming into a space of integration with yourself, your shadow, doing the inner work, you have to be prepared to not be shaken by the views of others, the criticisms. I had gone through some things to what I'm sharing with you now, sometime last year. And as I said earlier, leadership is not easy. And in my mind, as I was prior to this situation had taken place, in my mind, I had seen life as just being great. I was doing my, I think it was time of LinkedIn audio before it had ended. So there's a time where I was doing the LinkedIn audio sometime last year, obviously, and someone came on this during the audio stream and shared some thoughts, and I wasn't prepared for it. It shook me. It shook me. And I'll be very honest with you. I'm not going to give any names, but it shook me. And I just wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know what to say because all of us in the circle that I had created or just had created around the conversation, everyone was having a good time, sharing their views and thoughts and things of that nature. And this person, it felt like it was a wrench thrown into the mix there. And it shook me. I'm being very honest with you. And so it shook me so where I this is like towards the end of 2025, where I stopped doing the streams, the audio, and this is well before they had ended. There was a gap there, but I had stopped doing the live streams, the audio live streams or any other live stream. I just stopped doing it because it shook me. The critique, the criticism, it shook me. And I had to figure out how I was going to get myself back together. And I had to, a lot of questions I had. I had to look at my own value system, what I valued. And that's what ultimately allowed me to get back on the horse and get up and do what I love to do. Is I had to look at my own value system, because sometimes in the midst of doing life, things sometimes that can come so easy. Us operating in our purpose, us operating in the things that we love to do. But then there's that one time when that person shows up and it feels like they've thrown a wrench into it. And all of a sudden you're just feeling just like you don't know what to say. And that was me. So I had to look at my value system. I had to be okay with taking that hit, because that's part of leadership. My wife would even say to me during that time, babe, when are you going to get back on? Because she knows it was something I love to do. But I also had to look at my value system. And so now that I'm back, I've had to make some changes, not necessarily with my value system, but I had to be prepared to not put others' critique or criticism above my own mission, my own assignment, my own purpose. And so just wanted to share that with you really quick. So this integrated identity architecture, you've got to be sound in this space. You have to be able to level the criticism, or even look at the the critique or the criticism, or it depends on how it's done. You have to be prepared to look at it from a space of, is it me? Because all too often we can find ourselves trying to defend ourselves. And no matter how perfect you might be, I think there's always still room for growth. Absolutely. So you've got to have a strong disposition as you're dealing in this space of, again, this identity, integrated identity architecture. Again, back to just the foundation of who we are, our value system that sometimes has to give life, and the things that are placed before us, just a hard no. Just a hard no. And lastly, this of the 5 pillars here is the legacy-driven purpose. When a leader is anchored in a purpose larger than themselves, they are able to see beyond the immediate wound. They ask not, how do I punish this? They don't ask, how do I punish for this? But how do I lead through this in a way that serves the long-term good? And that's kind of what I just shared with you, is that even I, as a leader, had to get to that place to be prepared to look at the map that I had created, look at the directions and to where I was going, because wherever they were going, and just the story I was sharing with you moments ago, wherever they were going, that's not where I was going. And we have to be prepared for just the different opinions, and they're okay. It's okay to be different. And I think the interesting thing about this place in integrated leadership is that oftentimes the more and more you are practicing this, because it is a practice, it has to be a daily routine. It has to be a part of your life. It's not something that you just take on, that you put on and take off. You are one person in your words, and yet a completely another, or one person in a workspace, and yet a completely different person in your personal space or at home with your family. That's not integration. That's deception. That's not integration. That's deception. And a man who deceives himself, well, a man who deceives himself is coming from a place where he's already been. He's returned back to that same place. I'll put it that way. So a man who deceives himself has made a decision to return back to that same place where he once was. Because this integration is not deception. This integration is a man making a decision to be whole rather than be divided. All right, guys, we've been on about an hour, so if you had any questions, please ask away. Stephen Jackson over on Substack, thank you for joining. And thank you for joining Coach Carrie over on Substack as well. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Sharito. Thank you, Marcia. Appreciate you all. Let's see. Thank you for tagging others in this. Sharito, I appreciate you. Thank you, Natalie, for being here. Thank you. I think I got everybody there. So yeah, if you guys got any questions, ask away. And if not, we're going to end this conversation. I'm trying to do better on time, guys. Trying to do better on time. Wayne says you exhibited self-awareness, acceptance, and resilience. Absolutely. As an integrated leader, you demonstrated humility in receiving, a key to giving. Absolutely. I appreciate you, brother. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, leadership is not easy, guys. It's not easy. And it is not easy. It is something that we must face because, as I said earlier, if you and I are not willing to lead, and when I speak of leadership, emphatically, I am not only speaking from a space of leading an organization, because if you and I are not able to lead ourselves through the stuff that we have dealt with in life, good, bad, or indifferent, again, if we are not ready to lead ourselves through the stuff that we've dealt with, how on God's green earth can you begin to lead your family, lead an organization? Come on now, let's use some logical thinking. Ideally, you're going to lead them through the same garbage that you're going through. Come on now. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure that out. This is just the nature of who we are until our mind has been renewed, ladies and gentlemen. Until our minds have been renewed, we're only capable of producing the same thing over and over and over, to the point where it gets exhausting, to the point where, again, as I mentioned earlier, like betrayed, have your feelings and have your thoughts ever betrayed you? Have your feelings or your thoughts ever betrayed you? Well before an individual can betray us, because as people, we often like to place the blame on other people. But how about your thoughts and your feelings betraying you, seducing you, drawing you in, and just dropping you off in a no man's land? And now you're in a place where you've got to survive. You've got to pick up exactly where you're at and survive. What's a man to do when he's in a place where he has to or at least feeling like he's been dropped off in a place called no man's land? He now, or she, is in a place where they have to survive. What's a person to do when we are coming from a survival mode? I'll answer it for you. We're subject to do almost anything to survive. And I think once we as people understand that, it's in me too, doing almost anything to survive. It's in every last one of us. And when we can come to terms with that, we're prepared to integrate the two, the shadow and the man that we, or woman that we are desiring to become. But until then, we'll see ourselves as them. There's us and then there's them. That's not true. There's just us, because we all have the propensity to be a certain way when we are seduced by our feelings, seduced by our own desires, dropped off in a place called no man's land. And now we've got to fight our way out of this space. It's called survival. Absolutely, absolutely. Over here on LinkedIn here, Sharito says, thank you for commenting. Sharito says, leaders are leaders on earth should not be so furious because there is only one leader in all of mankind, God. Absolutely. Sharito, I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. Unfortunately, not everyone believes that. And, this is the reality. And this is reality. I think part of what a lot of us are dealing with is that we think that we're so different. Um, I, we think our titles oftentimes to people, certain people, they they are the difference. Our homes, the clothes that we wear, the cars that we drive, uh, they are the difference to some people, and it really is as I stated earlier, it really is a unintegrated way of thinking. It really is, and it is unfortunate because again, as I said earlier, when a person knows thyself, um, the other man, the other man, and even yet the other woman, and the other woman, the other people, they're also known. They're also known. I was talking with my good brother Wayne here over on LinkedIn earlier, and we talked about a lot of different things. Great brother, great conversation we had. But I was talking about how oftentimes that just society and the things that are put out there, that when we don't have a firm foundation on who we are and coming into our own self, and I know it sounds almost like it's strange, but it's not strange, because along the way there's been a cover up, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say that, and I'll put that out there. There's been a cover up, and as long as there's been a cover up, and certain sensibilities have been attacked, uh, meaning that kind of like I'll put it this way, kind of like a courtroom. There's the plaintiff and there's the defendant, and the plaintiff is pleading their case, or the attorney is pleading the case for the plaintiff, and the defendant also will eventually plead his case. And as often as the defendant will introduce doubt or introduce certain possibilities that it could, well, that's true what he is saying, but it also could be looked at this way. Okay, well, that's true, but it also could be looked at that way. And here's my point, and I want to wrap this up here. Here's my point. As long as we have allowed society in the courtroom, so to speak, of society, it's the same tricks, the same stuff every single time. And as long as we can allow people to play to our sensibility, what happens? Here's what happens. Our trust is eroded. Our trust in our own self is eroded. They begin to chip away at our trust to the point where we don't know what to believe. So the defendant has won the case on a technicality because we, in most cases, are not grounded in a belief system, a set of values that will challenge the the variables that oftentimes that have been presented to us. So I think we got to get that part right. This is a game that they're playing, and it's just what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's just what it is, and you've got to take some peace and solace in understanding who you are as a human being, and again, when these people, organizations, whoever, like the courtroom, like life in a sense is a courtroom. When you've allowed people to play with your sensibility, your from that sensory realm, you come to a place where you don't trust yourself. And you come to a place where you in fact are you become owned by them, because if they can disrupt your thinking, they can own you. And this has nothing to do with race, ladies and gentlemen. Please understand this. It has nothing to do with race. It is our decision that we will need to make is to come out of the woods, come out of the obscurity, and begin to ask ourselves some of the tough questions in life. To begin to ask ourselves, is it me? Is it me? Because when we have not figured that out, we're walking and talking as a leader that is scorned. So that being said, guys, we got some work to do, and I want to say thank you to everyone. And as I stated earlier in the conversation, I am a men's life coach and executive coach. So if you have enjoyed this conversation and you would like to inquire more about what I have to share here, and you want to get on track as it relates to that integrated leader, check out my information on screen here. At bit.ly/integrated leadership. That is going to take you to my website, and you can connect with me for a complimentary 30-minute strategy session, guys. We'd love to hear from you. So see if we are a good fit for one another. That would be absolutely awesome. So again, check me out there. Link is on the screen, bit.ly/integrated leadership. All right. Natalie says here over on LinkedIn, this will be the last comment, guys. Wayne says, hey, Wayne. Uh, Wayne says, oh no, you're going there. Gloves off, speaking truth to power. Absolutely, brother. That's the way to fight, brother. That's the way to challenge things, man. Is to gloves off, man. Absolutely, man. Appreciate you. Natalie says over here on LinkedIn, Curtis, ERA cycle, experience, response, action is great. Impromptu, reflective practice to use in the scenarios that you are painting. Absolutely, Natalie. Absolutely. Yeah, I love how you put that together. ERA cycle, and I'd never heard it put that way. But yeah, that's absolutely awesome. I like that. ERA cycle. Yeah, that's cool. That's experience, response, action. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that reminds me of that pause. So that being said, guys, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you all for being here once more. Thank you, Coach Carey, for hanging out with me over on Substack, and I think you were over on LinkedIn. Thank you, Stephen Jackson over on Substack for being part of the conversation. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, my brother Wayne, for the comments and just the overall engagement, all of you here over on LinkedIn and Substack. Thank you, Sharito, for always supporting me. Absolutely. Thank you, Sharito. And my brother Wayne. Thank you, Marcia, for always supporting me, hanging out with us. I'm not sure if you're still here or not. And I think that may be it. And I think I think that might be it. And for anyone who will watch replay, thank you for watching replay, guys. And I hope this conversation has been an impactful conversation for you. And it's made a lot of sense and that you can follow along in this conversation. So that being said, guys, we'll say ciao for now and we'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.